During a normal year, these creeks provide more than half of Santa Clara County's water needs. This year, however, has been anything but normal. While much of the state enjoyed near-normal rainfall accumulations this past year, most areas of Santa Clara County hardly received a drop in the bucket. It was the third straight year of below-normal precipitation for San Jose and the third straight year of drought.
We have 10 reservoirs that the district owns and operates in the county, and those have a combined storage capacity of about 170,000 acre-feet, and right now they're at under 10% of their capacity, which is the lowest carryover storage that we've ever experienced.
While the drought may be over for some parts of the Bay Area, Santa Clara County is bracing itself for the most severe water crisis it has experienced in more than 100 years. In the next half hour, we'll take a close-up look at Santa Clara County's drought problem and why some parts of the Bay Area have been harder hit than others. Also, a look at how the city of Cupertino is responding to the water crisis locally and what local businesses and residents can do to help cut back on their water use. Also, a look at local allocation policies, billing procedures, and possible penalties. Stay tuned as our special report continues in a moment.
Carol.
Tom.
Some people still don't realize how space technology benefits everyone.
Well, you've played a detective. Why don't you give them a clue and I'll be your helper?
Okay, partner. Look at this.
Without warning, hurricanes can take a huge toll in lives and property.
But with space satellites, we now have ample warnings.
And thousands of lives have been saved.
Hey, Carol, we're a great team.
We're a great item.
Space technology.
This is what's in it for you.
Since the beginning of the drought in 1986, the Santa Clara Valley Water District has had to rely heavily on outside sources in order to meet its annual water consumption demands. The three main sources for imported water in the county are the State Water Project, the Hetch Hetchy System, and the Bureau of Reclamation's San Felipe Project. Completed in 1987, the San Felipe project will ultimately deliver up to 153,000 acre-feet of water per year to the county, meeting projected growth demands for the next 30 years. The San Felipe project was expected to supply much of Santa Clara County's water needs during this drought year. However, when drought conditions worsened, the federal government was forced to cut back its original allocation.
We had requested imported water from the Bureau of Reclamation to be delivered to the county through the San Felipe project facilities, and on February 10th, the Bureau announced that request was going to be cut in half. So that substantially impacted the available water resources in the county.
As late as mid-March, Valley Water District managers were facing the unpopular prospect of a 45% mandatory water reduction program. Just when things were looking grim, however, the State Department of Water Resources stepped in with an additional 83,000 acre-feet of water from Yuba County that would be used exclusively for Santa Clara County needs. This welcomed allotment from Yuba nearly cut in half the county's water deficit, allowing the district to ease its cutback requirements, but not the significance of its conservation message.
We're talking about the possibility of getting down to a level of about 25% overall water use reduction. Actually, we're calling it water use reduction as opposed to conservation because we really believe that a lot of conservation measures are in place right now. And so this is really more than just a water conservation issue, it's a water use reduction issue.
The 25% reduction plan recommended by the Valley Water District was adopted locally by the Cupertino City Council during their March 20th public hearing. Several water use prohibitions were enacted. They include landscape watering during daylight hours, serving water in restaurants unless requested, washing vehicles with a hose that doesn't have an automatic shutoff valve, wasting water through flooding or runoff, using water to clean patios or other hard paved surfaces, operating decorative fountains, using water in construction, wasting water because of broken or defective plumbing, flushing hydrants, and using the single-pass cooling process in new construction.
The restrictions, the prohibitions, will be enforced by the city citywide, and therefore if anyone is seen watering down their driveway or washing the car without a shut-off valve or watering plants during the day, using water for construction, they could be cited by the code enforcement officers. And the penalties are such that they will not exceed $500 nor 6 months imprisonment or a combination thereof.
The 25% mandatory water reduction effort affects all Cupertino residents, businesses, and industries, despite their water company or their specific water needs. Some businesses will be affected more than others, but even the hardest hit seem to understand the severity of the drought crisis.
Well, since that last drought we had in the 70s, this golf course and most other golf courses became aware of the problem, so we did a lot of things like to reduce the size of our nozzles and our sprinklers, and just were more careful with water, and we found we could use less water. Before, water, nobody ever thought about it, so you just watered indiscriminately, more or less.
During a normal season, the Blackberry Farm golf course uses about 26 million gallons of water. Much of this amount is supplied by a private well on the property. However, because Blackberry Farm is still subject to the same 25% reduction effort that affects the rest of the city, Nelson is taking measures to meet the necessary cutbacks.
Well, we'll just water less. We'll just water less. Like I say, maybe there are some sprinklers on the outskirts that we'll let go, and we'll water the trees, underneath the trees less. They take up a lot of moisture because their roots are so close to the surface because there's water there all the time. So it just might look a little bit browner, but that's basically the difference.
At Hewlett-Packard Cupertino, voluntary water conservation efforts have been in effect for more than a year. The company found that through modifications in landscape irrigation, it was able to cut back water use by more than 30%.
The two main areas that Hewlett-Packard faces for cutting back water is manufacturing and, of course, landscaping. We're a large homeowner like anyone else in the community, and we have quite a bit of property. Now, here in HP Cupertino, we don't have very much manufacturing. In 1985, we moved a lot off-site, we consolidated a lot, and we found right away our water consumption dropped by practically 50%. And the focus switched then from addressing the manufacturing usage to simply the landscaping usage. And here in Cupertino, we've got about 100 acres on our campus, and the main use of water is keeping that grass green. And what we're trying to do is preserve the roots, keep our trees alive, and only water the land when it needs it.
The city of Cupertino has also taken steps to cut down on its water use. Many of the city's water reduction efforts have been in effect for more than a year.
The city, as an agency, has already started. In fact, when we were asked by the district office to cut back 15% several months ago, the city did install moisture sensing devices in all the median strips and throughout the parks and things like that, so that we could find out when the water level was reached that we needed without wasting it with a lot of runoff. They've cut down all decorative fountains. Those are no longer operating, and the landscaping projects, the bigger ones, are on hold at this point.
One of those projects that is being impacted by the drought is the construction of the community center at Memorial Park.
Construction project will continue on. It's a matter of, if we can't landscape, we may just hold off the turf portion and maybe go ahead and install the different shrubs and so forth, but leave the turf until another year.
While local businesses and agencies seem to be doing their part to reduce water consumption, what about local residents? An average family of 5 is estimated to use about an acre-foot of water per year. An acre-foot is enough water to cover an entire football field to a depth of 12 inches, equivalent to 325,000 gallons. As some Bay Area water companies begin to lift their restrictions this summer, there is fear that Santa Clara Valley residents may become too complacent regarding their water use. When we return, we'll take a look at the issue of land subsidence, why it poses a particular danger to Santa Clara County, and why a 25% reduction must be maintained to avoid it. All this when Channel 53's special report continues in a moment.
Look out there, Kimberly. Tell me what you see.
Well, Miss Smith, I see rocks and dirt. It looks like a desert.
It's called a reservoir, Kimberly. Years ago, it used to be filled with water.
How come it's empty now?
Because we've had 3 years of dry weather. That's why it's so important to cut back on water use.
Wow, I'm going to go home and tell my parents to save water.
Santa Clara County is in a real drought, so please save water, indoors and outdoors.
The drought is over for much of Northern California. The San Francisco Water Company has recently joined other Bay Area retailers and has lifted mandatory water use restrictions altogether. Late spring storms in the Sierra and in Northern California coastal regions have provided much of this needed relief. A sharp contrast, however, still divides the north with the south. In Marin County, reservoirs sit well at nearly 80% capacity, while South Bay reservoirs combined are just barely meeting the 10% level. East Bay Mud, which serves Alameda and Contra Costa counties, received some precipitation relief, but not enough to discontinue their current conservation program, which was adopted in June of last year.
We'll continue it until the board declares the water shortage emergency over. And I would not think they would do that until we have substantial reserves in our reservoirs.
While local reservoir levels are extremely low, another problem of even greater magnitude confronts residents of the South Bay. During a normal season, rainfall and local creek runoff filter deep into the earth, restoring underground aquifers just in time to meet summer consumption demands. Drought conditions, however, during the past 3 years have contributed to a major decrease in the county's groundwater basin. So low are these levels that land subsidence, an actual sinking of the land due to underground water depletion, is dangerously close to reoccurring.
In Santa Clara County, the subsidence is of the type called artesian head decline. It just means that they're pumping out groundwater, which is sort of propping up the surface. There's water pressure down there, and it holds the little particles of soil apart. And then when you pump out the water, the little grains come closer together, and it reduces the volume of the material there, and it causes it to settle. And it occurs so slowly and over such a broad area that you don't really notice it, say in a single house, because you're all going down together. But over long streets, canals, drain lines, sewer lines, you suddenly see over a period of years that you've lost your grade.
Subsidence is a familiar word to the residents of Alviso. 75 years ago, their town rested well above the level of the bay. Today, man-made levees hold back the water from a community that has dropped more than 10 feet below sea level and continues to sink today.
If you go to Alviso, you can see that the dike is holding back the bay, that the houses and the eating places and the land inside the dikes, which formerly was right at sea level, is now well below sea level. And that was strictly a matter of sucking out the groundwater over a long period of time.
The Santa Clara Valley Water District effectively stopped the process of land subsidence in 1969 by pumping water from the state aqueduct system into the local groundwater basin. During the period from 1925 through 69, the city of San Jose sank more than 13 feet, wreaking havoc with well casings and sewer lines and altering the flow of creeks. In these last couple of drought years, however, the battle against subsidence has reappeared. Local runoff being virtually non-existent, the water district has had to turn to imported water as a means of simply maintaining current levels in the nearly depleted groundwater basin.
Since 1983, there has been a gradual decline in the groundwater levels. We are not at, but we are approaching levels at which we have experienced subsidence in the past. We want to eliminate that, certainly. And so we have attempted to encourage the retailers that can to use surface water wherever they can, water that comes out of our treatment plants, and to back off on their pumping.
One of the things I'm not sure is real clear to everybody, but it's real clear to those of us who are trying to deal with it every day, is that we have a very unique situation in Santa Clara County, and it's not the same situation that the Hetch Hetchy water users, which are the San Francisco and the Peninsula users that have just come off of water rationing. In Santa Clara County, we have water aquifers below the surface, which are layers of water, and there's several of them, and there's ground and then water, and then there'll be ground and then water. As those aquifers don't refill because of the drought, we're subject to land subsidence. That's not true in San Francisco, that's not true in the Peninsula, and it's not true in the East Bay in the same sense that it's true in Santa Clara County.
When we return, a look at Cupertino's water allocation policies and some helpful tips that can help save you both water and money during these dry summer months, as our special report continues in a moment.
Hey, thanks to these airbags here, this job is now a piece okay, Claire.
But Vince...
Yeah, I'll tell you something, partner. I just might stick around a few more years.
But Vince...
No more dashboard du jour or Vince under glass, huh?
But Vince...
Look out!
Even with airbags, Vince, you still got to remember to buckle your safety belt.
Now you tell me.
You could learn a lot from a dummy. Buckle your safety belt.
While the drought may be over for much of Northern California, Santa Clara Valley residents will have to continue with those conservation programs already in effect, at least until the end of the year. The conservation programs vary from community to community, however most subscribe to the 25% reduction level. In Cupertino, the 25% reduction program requires residents to cut back their water use based on 1987 consumption rates. This means if a resident used, say, 10,000 cubic feet of water in 1987, he or she is required to use no more than 7,500 cubic feet in 1989. A resident's water usage is monitored on a monthly basis as an average of his or hers overall annual use. To some, those who have been conserving all along, or those who have experienced special circumstances such as a recent increase in family size, reduction requirements based on 1987 levels hardly seem fair.
It states here that the minimum water usage, all right, in the allocation section will not be less than 6 units per month. Does that mean that you're going to cut me down 25%, where someone who maybe just fell off the prune truck 4 years ago in a new house with magic watering systems that run 4 or 5 hours a day, and we have a lot of them in our city and we know that, will get that kind of a usage on the 17 or 18 where I've been conserving water for our valley for 15 years?
The hard part about this drought and any kind of reduction program that exists is how do you decide who has to reduce and how much. And there is no fair way that is consistently fair for every single household and every single business in town. What we tried to do was say if everybody will do 25% worth of what they'd done before, that would really make a big difference.
For most of us, however, the 25% reduction level will have to be met. Failure to comply will result in surcharges, the installation of flow restrictor devices, and ultimately a discontinuation of service.
Based on your allocation of 87, if you exceed that allocation by anywhere from 0 to 50%, you will be charged a higher rate for that consumption. If you use consumption from the 50 to 100%, the rate is almost 10 times what you would have otherwise paid. Or I should say the City Council has taken a position of not to raise the basic rate, but to penalize those that use the higher consumption.
These specific surcharges will be assessed to customers of Cupertino water only. Similar penalties, however, have been adopted by Cupertino's other 2 water companies, Cal Water and San Jose Water. For more information regarding specific surcharges, contact your water company at one of these 3 numbers. The City of Cupertino has also established an appeals process for anyone who may feel their specific water allocation based on 1987 levels is unfair.
If there is a trend or continue to be a trend in water conservation, or in cases that something happened in 87 that was peculiar to that customer's water needs for that year, we may be able to detect it by going back a few years prior to that and see if there is a rise or a dip in the consumption for that period of time, and say, well, 87 may not be a year to really use as a standard because of some circumstances that have occurred, and it may not be typical, and therefore adjustments should be made.
We can track what they're saying to us by looking at their water history. And they say that, you know, there used to be a little old lady that lived in this house in 1987, and then we bought the house and we're a family of 8. We can look at the water history and see that there's been a marked trend change just exactly the time that they told us they moved in. So we do that kind of validating, but we're not really investigating in great depths, and we're not trying to catch people in any kind of misrepresentation. What we do basically is we listen to what they say to us, we look at the water history use. If there hasn't been a lot of change in the history, or it seems that they have a great deal, or using a lot of water compared to the average in the community already, we take that into consideration. But what we found is that administratively and as a practical matter, we can look at those water histories. It's better to assume the number of people that they say are in the home actually are probably there, and make an allocation that's appropriate and according.
Although a 25% reduction effort is difficult for just about everyone, a lot of water can be saved simply through the routine monitoring of one's individual water use.
Most of the water used during the summertime, you know, would be towards irrigation or maintenance of the landscaping. And so people would have to maybe not cut their lawn quite as often because a longer lawn doesn't dry out as fast. Cut back on the water to the shrub areas. And most importantly, you know, just keep track of small leaks around the house, like running toilet. Run a half a gallon a minute could add up to several hundred cubic feet in a couple months.
There's a simple way to check for leaks around the home. First, turn off all water, both indoors and outdoors. Read your meter. Wait 15 to 20 minutes and read your meter again. If the hand has moved, you have a leak. Other water-saving tips are rather obvious. Water outside only when it's absolutely necessary. Take short showers. Do only full loads in the dishwasher. And set the water level on your washing machine to the lowest possible level given the size of your load. Many of the typical figures seen here can be cut in half or even more with proper reduction measures. The City of Cupertino is offering a water information guide and water conservation kit for all those who may be interested. Both are available at Cupertino City Hall during regular business hours. For more information on local water conservation efforts, contact the City of Cupertino at 252-4505.
Hopefully the whole effort here is to try to minimize the overdrafting of the underground water table so that we don't have subsidence, and try to get through this one year and hopefully have a wet winter the following year so that the drought can be lifted, or the drought restrictions can be lifted.